Hello, everyone. Welcome to a new session on building chatbots without writing code using bot framework composer by a very well-known and renowned speaker, Lee Thomas. So she has actually hosted a session before us, and a few of you folks might have attended the session. And this is a build up on that. We are working on the skills that we have built on that particular session, and moving forward in this particular session of that. And thank you for tuning in on a weekend, and thank you, Liji, for joining in. All over to you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ashirwad. And thank you all for making time once again on a Saturday morning to bot, so to speak. Welcome back. And for those of us who have joined previously on my bot session, I'd love to do a quick refresher on some of the concepts before we move on as well. And so I hope you can see my screen, Ashirwad, if you can
Yes,
confirm.
Liji.
All
Yeah.
right. Okay. Thank you. So this session would be basically around the Bot Framework Composer, which is a rather new tool from Microsoft. It was released a year or so back, but Bot Framework Composer 2.0 came out in Microsoft Build this year, and it's a good welcome addition to our bot toolkit that is available from Microsoft and from Azure. So into the weeds, a little about myself. My name is Liji Thomas. I'm a technical manager with the company Velorum Reply. We're based in the US. I work out of their smart city office in Kochi. It is in Kerala. And some of my major focus areas are on Azure AI, which has got to do with conversational AI, cognitive services, and even cognitive search. And you can find me on social media, especially on LinkedIn, and please feel free to connect. And I'm happy to take these conversations further as well. So the agenda for the day, because again, we might have new folks come into the picture who were not there in the previous session. We'll talk a little about the history of conversational AI, about Microsoft in the picture. Before we go into the weeds of Bot Framework Composer, then this will be a demo-driven session. And finally, I will be happy to open it up for Q&A. So maybe 10 minutes we will take to, just talk about the background of chatbots. We've moved through the PC era, the internet era, the mobile era, and now we talk about Industry 4.0 or the AI era. And of course, that's connected with chatbots. So throughout all this evolution of chatbots, there's been a lot of interchangeable names that you might find in a on a daily basis. It's not a technology that is yet coming. It's actually here, but you might be wondering about conversational agents, virtual agents, and so on and so forth. So what exactly is a chatbot? A chatbot is another software program. The only difference is that it simulates human conversations. It is the method in which you interact with this program is quite different from how you might have done with the traditional program. So this, you might use text or voice commands, or maybe a combination of both. So you can have standalone bots like Alexa or Siri, or you can even have that embedded as part of your website. So you go to Amazon.com, you might see a chatbot there. So what exactly can a bot do, or what are its capabilities, depends entirely about the business case, about the use case for that bot. Different bots can be built for different purposes. So you can build a very simple bot that can maybe set an alarm for you and wake you up in the morning, to you can even build very complicated bots like set up your dinner reservation or set up your doctor's appointment, and those kinds of bots. So why chatbots? That is probably the question of the hour. So why would someone use a chatbot versus using a website or a web application? Or I could even download an application from Play Store and I have access to my smartphone apps. Why would someone use a chatbot? So a couple of reasons why. One, using chatbots is all about the interface. It's about the user experience. It feels less like using a computer and it's more like dealing directly with a person. couple that with the fact that a chatbot, seldom complains. It's available 24/7, and it's always available for immediate responses. Our wait times are just so low these days, and including customers who want immediate responses to their queries and their questions. So a chatbot facilitates that. The initial investment on setting a chatbot may be high, but then over a period of time you will see that return of investment. You can reach a lot of social media channels, especially digital channels, by using chatbots, because you put your bot where the audience is, and that's the fundamental paradigm of a chatbot, right? So if you have your major audience on Facebook, you would take your bot to Facebook. So if you have it on Teams or in Slack or in Twitter, you take your application or your software or your bot to your audience. And it's quite different from the what we've been doing traditionally, wherein you build an app and you bring your audience to the app, right? So that there's a conceptual shift there. And of course, all of this together, there is an improved or increased engagement from the user side. So that's some of the reasons why you would build chatbots. So if you look at it historically, this is just to say that we might probably think that Alexa and Siri is some of the new founding bots that have been there, but bots have actually been there for a long time. And if you're excited to know that this is having a good future as well, if you have to go by statistics, there's a good amount of data there to justify our investment in learning these kind of technologies, because just one of them says 95% of the customer transactions would be using AI bots by 2025. So there's a lot of traction in this space. And even today, a lot of companies, a lot of brands worldwide have already adopted this technology. So if you look at the major brands at their websites, most of them already have an AI strategy or a chatbot strategy as part of their branding. And you go to Pizza Hut or Domino's or Marriott or Hyatt or Sephora, and it's not limited to any specific industry or kind of business that they come from. So this is open to small, medium, large scale enterprises. You have different retail industry, travel industry, healthcare industry, those who have their data online, those who have it on-prem. It's open to all of them. And also some innovative bots as well. So if you are thinking that that's just for customer service bots, probably not so. So you have Do Not Pay is an interesting bot. It started off as a ticketing bot, but now you have that bot provide legal services to customers. Not still open in India, but it's there in the UK and the US. You can probably even sue someone using that bot. Margot is a AI wine chatbot. So if you are looking for a bot to tell you or help you select the best wine to go with your food, you have a bot for that. Wobot is a bot that's built based on the principles of CBT, that's cognitive behavioral therapy. It's one of the most research clinical approaches towards treating depression. So some of my previous audience has actually interacted with the Wobot, and it helps chat with users who've gone through that kind of depression. So a few chatbot myths for your interest. It's not an absolutely new technology. The technology was always there. It's just becoming a little more relevant and developing in the current times. And chatbots not just support customer service. There's a lot of use cases for chatbots. All bots do not necessarily use AI. So it's a myth that all bots use AI. You might have seen certain bots, especially bots on WhatsApp or those kind of channels. It strictly follows a script. It does not understand, it cannot take any queries beyond those 2 or 3 commands that it has been scripted for. So those are strictly rule-based programmed bots. AI chatbots have got a much larger domain. It's be able to understand the user's language and will be able to interpret it and respond accordingly. And then, of course, there's this always this debate on chatbots versus humans. We would like to think about it as a team effort. You have chatbots and humans, and probably on the same team. Chatbots are here to, even in our own context. For example, if you had a bot at work today, The bot at your workplace is intended to improve your productivity. It's intended to help you find or discover information, so you don't have to spend time on those regular mundane automated tasks. You can go do something far more creative with your time. And chatbots are difficult to build. So there's I would actually leave you with that and help you answer that question, because the rest of the session is about how difficult it is to build chatbots. So coming into the technical space, Microsoft has been invested in this area for a long period of time, and over several years back at a Build conference, Satya sort of prophetically said that human language is the new UI layer. We should be able to interact with technology, with applications in a way that we interact with each other. The UI should be as seamless and as intuitive as that. Traditionally, we've always been asked to learn the language of the machines. You go to a beautiful website, as functional and as powerful as that website may be, you might be required to understand and learn the language of that website, to learn the language of the application. You would want to know what buttons are placed where, which menu items lead to where, what are those pages, what's the navigational language, everything. So we were always expected to learn the language of the machines. Not anymore. So that's where chatbots, when they come into the picture, the bots are expected to learn our language. And we, for once in the history of our mankind, we can actually interact with technology, with chatbots in a way that we interact just with each other, just the way that we have conversations with each other. And we've historically, since cave times, we've been telling stories to each other. That's how we communicate to each other. We can now communicate with the technology, with chatbots, just as seamless as that. So, which is why they say human language is the new UI layer, and bots are like the new applications. So, deep dive into the technical aspect. So all of this offerings from the Microsoft side is made available through Azure AI services. So you have Azure infrastructure, and on the Azure infrastructure layer, you would have data, you'd have compute, all the powerful CPU, FPGA, etc. And then you have Azure AI services, which again, you have pre-built services. You can build your own services as well. That's where custom AI comes. And then you have conversational AI services. Now, all this supplemented with the amazing tools that are also available for the developer community, like you and me, to actually create bots and applications using these services and infrastructure. For the scope of this session, we would be talking to conversational AI and starting with bot service to sort of connect the dots and show you where it leads to bot framework composer. So for seasoned developers in this space, you might be familiar with the bot development lifecycle. And let's take a step back and say, application developers who will be working here, we know the SDLC, the software development lifecycle. So the BDLC, or the bot development lifecycle, is not very different, right? You plan, you build, you test, you publish your bot, and when you're happy with what you see, you actually connect. So that's in the connect phase is where you take your bot and deploy it to the various channels, as we discussed. You take it to Slack, Twitter, or Teams, or Facebook, and then you evaluate the bot. So that's when your users start interacting with your bot. You get feedback on, okay, so my bot did not answer that question. My bot did not understand that user's asked. And then you go back, taking those insights probably from your Power BI report, and you go back and then you again go to your design module, and you again build and test, and you publish additional features and train and retain your bot. So this is at a very high level of what typically happens in a development team which builds chatbots. So the core service that helps in this regard is the Azure Bot Service. The Azure Bot Service is a purpose-built environment that's offered from Microsoft for purely this purpose of building bots, planning, deploying, planning, designing, building, connect, evaluate, and for all those purposes. Now, I'd like to show you a demo of the Azure Bot Service to just take you to the story of Bot Framework Composer. So if I can shift to my screen here, and I will show you. So here I am in my portal with portal.azure.com. So if you have a subscription, you may try this out right away. Or if you do not have one, it's quite easy to start with a free Azure subscription. With a few credits you would get, you can try out what we are doing today. So in from my dashboard now, I have this plus icon here. I can create a resource. So how I would create a resource is just search for bot. That's the easiest way to do it. You might find a couple of bot services, bot like web app bot channels registration. Those were the previous ones. Now what is recommended is to use the Azure bot. So this is the Azure bot service that we're talking about. If we hit create and we provide a few parameters like your resource group, the name of your bot service, the location that you want it to be deployed at, etc., so that bot would be deployed. That resource would be deployed and be ready for you. So that might take a couple of minutes. So I have one already created here. So this is my Azure bot. So historically, the first time that the Azure bot service was made available to the developer community, and the bot framework SDK, which is again an open source SDK, was there. Code first approach was the only way we could build chatbots, right? So on the left pane, you will find all these details here. You'll find channels to actually connect it to, etc. And then what you would do is, because this is now on Azure, it's a live service. You would use the bot framework SDK to build chatbots, and you would deploy it to this Azure bot service. So in that way, from there, it would be connected to your various channels. Now, later on, Microsoft also introduced a new tool by the name of Composer. And if you care to note this, you can open this very same bot that we are looking at right here in Composer. So you have an option to open it in Composer and also from here, which is technically to say that there are various ways in which you can approach to building a bot. You can, if you like, go by the code first approach, open up Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio 2017, 2019. You will get templates for download, and you can actually work on your source code, and then you can publish it back into Azure. So that's one way to go. The other way to go is by using the bot framework composer, which is what we're going to cover in the rest of the session here. So let's take a look. So what is bot framework composer? Right. Quick look at the time. All right. So what is the bot framework composer? Just like we use Visual Studio Code or Visual Studio IDE, this is an open source IDE which helps you create and manage your conversational experiences. So it's a visual editing canvas for building bots. The easiest way I try to explain this is, imagine you have your classic IDE and you have a design aspect to that. There's a design window for that, where you can actually drag out components from your toolbox, and you can actually see what you are building. I'm not sure how many seasoned developers really use that, and they prefer code really. But this is a composer. A composer is that visual editing canvas where you can actually see what you are building, and that's the advantage of that. So what can I do in the composer? You can create and manage bots. As simple as that. You can do a lot of things, like you can create a new bot, you can add your text and speech responses. If you want to test, you can test directly inside the composer itself. You don't have to leave the interface of the composer. You can integrate it with APIs. You can add your question answers and FAQ type capabilities. You can even connect it with natural language understanding. You have LUIS or language understanding service. It's an intelligent service from Microsoft, from Azure AI. You can connect it with that. You can even extend it beyond that. I mean, you don't have to finish your bot within Bot Framework Composer. After you have built it to a certain extent, you can download the source code from Bot Framework Composer, and you can continue your journey within your classic IDE, within a Visual Studio, if you'd like. So you can even publish your bot directly from the Bot Framework Composer as well. So why should I use the composer, right? So um, in certain cases, it's just so much easier to see what you're building. It's so easy if you get to design the conversational experiences. The choice is completely up to you if you'd like to go via a code first approach or this, but do give it a try. I would say you would probably enjoy seeing the design and the visual interface. So how do I get the composer? Quite easy. You might just want to just search for Bot Framework Compose and you get to download it from Microsoft docs.microsoft.com. There's actually two versions of the composer that is available. You get a desktop application, which is the one we would be using in this session. You also have a web-based component if you want to use Yarn and if you want to try it that way as well. So before we go into the demo session, a quick precursor on just two minor concepts inside the Bot Framework Composer. One is about a concept of dialogues. So it is possible to create the entire bot as one single line of thread of conversation. It is also recommended that we break it down into smaller chunks of functionality called dialogues. So it's, if you take an entire conversation that you had throughout the day, you might realize that it's actually, literally speaking, dialogues that you've had here and there at various points. So it's the same concept. Again, we will take a deeper look into this as we look at the demo, but just wanted to introduce that term called dialogues. Another term is about triggers and actions, and we will also see this in action. So triggers are basically the rules that tell the bot how to process your messages, which means, say, when an event happens, the trigger is your event handler. It is the one that will handle that event. And when you handle that event, what do you do with that after that is your action, is the actual step that you're performing there. Again, we will see this in demo to sort of explain how that is working, but just a few terms there: dialogues, triggers, and actions. So trigger is your event handler. Those are the actual rules that tell you how to, or tell the bot how to go about processing the messages. And actions are what the bot knows to do once the triggers are actually fired. Okay, so I'm shifting to the Bot Framework Composer, and probably if you can see my screen, I have actually downloaded the Bot Framework Composer. So I would just type for Composer and fire it up. So the Bot Framework Composer, as I said, is a tool that you can get for download, and I have downloaded it as my desktop app that is actually being fired up right now. And there was a previous version of Bot Framework Composer. If you've been using, I would highly encourage you to try out the latest version, which is V2.0, the latest version of Bot Framework Composer. So this is what the composer looks like. You know, it's got this IDE, and it's got this look. And on the left-hand side, you will see a lot of options. We will go through this. On the right-hand side, you will see a notifications bar, and so on and so forth. So let's start this. Let's start on the top right corner. You'll find a button called Create New. So if you hit Create New, you have a couple of options here. So you have options to, if you want to take a look, there's a C# option, and there's a Node option, and Node is still in preview, yet you may try that out as well. So I will go for the C# option here, and you find that there are a number of templates you can use. You can use the empty bot template, and for each of the template that you choose, you might see that there is an explanation on the right-hand side as to what you get with that template. So it's just like your Visual Studio C# template that you would use. Yeah. So if I use the empty bot, I get so-and-so, and I can even use the core bot. I can use Enterprise Assistant bot, which is a rather powerful offering. So I will go for empty bot for today. I will take the C# empty bot, and let's name this. I would in Azure Community bot. I don't know if that name is already taken, but we can try Azure Community bot. And you can run that as an Azure web app, or you can even deploy that as an Azure functions. I will go for web app for today. And if you note the location, this is the location at which this bot will be available on your so background, I mean, behind the scenes, whatever we are going to sort of draw out on our canvas, just know that this there is code that is actually being developed for that, and it's actually available at a location. So that's what that indicates. So while that is being fired up, it might take a minute or so, and it's just getting all your packages and your templates and everything ready, so that we can start drawing up on the canvas. I would encourage you to please use the chat window to share your questions and leave your comments. We would have time towards the end of the session to take up that. So please feel free to use the chat window to share your questions, if any. So this is building your runtime. Now, there's another tool, meanwhile, I could probably introduce you to. It is called the Bot Framework Emulator. So this is what the Bot Framework Emulator looks like. So the Bot Framework Emulator is, again, a tool. You can just search for Bot Framework Emulator. You can download it to your machine. It's a desktop tool. And if you've worked with phone applications or tablet applications earlier, imagine this as some kind of a simulator wherein you can test or the interaction with the bot. So you don't have to wait to put your bot on the actual channel to test it during your local development purposes. This is the tool using which you can interact with your bot, and you can test those interactions with the bot. So that's Bot Framework Emulator. So we have our first bot from Bot Framework Composer, which is up and running, and you'll see this rocket menu on the left, which shows you, some of the things that point us to get started with. You can collapse that. You can see that anytime. And also here, let me introduce you to the Bot Framework Composer. At the top, you have the blue bar, and on the left hand side you'd find a couple of menu options for you to create the bot, to configure your bot. This is where you provide the user input, the responses. As I said, you can directly publish from the Bot Framework Composer to Azure. You don't have to shift in and out of the Bot Framework Composer here on. If you want, just like you do it in Visual Studio, you also have a package manager here. If you want additional powerful capabilities for your bot, you can import additional packages there. Composer settings is a place where you can change this to light mode, dark mode. You can set up your auto updates, etc. So that's so much for the menu. And this is our canvas right at the center. This is our dialogues and our how we are going to draw out the bot. But this is where majority of our activity will be conducted. And this is sort of like the property pane that you see on the right hand side. Now, without doing anything at all, so let me just run the bot up front. So I have not written a single line of code. I have not made any changes to the bot at all. Just running the bot, whatever we've got out of the box from Bot Framework Composer, and I will allow access there so it can run. And there you will see that the bot is actually running. So my runtime has just started up. Now there are two ways in which we can interact with the bot. So one is using the emulator, which would fire up the tool that I just showed right now. Another easier way, if you don't want to move in and out of the composer, is just opening it up in web chat. So web chat is an embedded test interface within the Bot Framework Composer. So there on the right hand side, what you see is the web chat. So I can just see that the bot has greeted me, welcome to your bot. Now, I did not write that, but it seems to have come out of the box. Now, whatever else I say the bot at this point in time, it will not understand because I have not trained the bot to respond to that. So let's take a deeper look. So that's my web bot. Now, where did that welcome to your bot come from? If you look at the left pane and sort of investigate this, you'd see two sort of lightning kind of icons there. And this is the trigger that we're talking about. So we already have a trigger called greeting. Now, this comes out of the box, as I said, with this particular template. We chose an empty bot template, but even with that, you have a greeting trigger that comes out of the box. Now, in the greeting trigger, you would see certain logic that is already written. To explain this, the logic is to greet a user proactively upfront the first time an interaction with the bot happens. So that is this logic that is written here. And it also, in the as part of that logic or that diagram, so this is basically how that flow would be looking like. You would see welcome to your bot. So this is okay, so that's where welcome to the bot is coming from. Now this can be completely configured. You can change it, you can edit it from your side. So today I was hoping we would build a bot around, maybe just keeping it light, maybe a bot that can tell you a joke. You're having a busy day and you want to take a break, and you don't have your friends around, you're working remote, and you just want to have a laugh. So why don't we build a joke bot? So here's where I have just changed that interface. If you note, I have not written any code here. I have just changed this to welcome your joke bot. Now, so this is what we had out of the box, but let me try adding or showing you how to actually create these kind of flow charts. So if you see here by the way, you can actually have a zoom icon here to zoom in and sort of zoom out, and you can see your canvas even better. So if you can see the plus icon there, if I click the plus icon, you will see a load of options here. You have the option to send a response from the bot. So that would just display a message on the user's interface. You can even ask a bot and return a response. You can create conditions, branch conditions, if-else conditions. So that's how we just saw it up. You can create looping, you have dialogue management, you can have a lot of, you can call external resources, you can have debugging options. Now, let's do something very simple. Let's ask a question. Let's ask the question, hi, so we said welcome to your joke bot. Hi, I am, for lack of creativity on Saturday morning, I was going to make up a name like something that sounds like Cortana or Alexa. Let's make Joka as the name of my bot. Hi, I am Joka. What is your name? So I'm just going to ask the user, what is your name? And hopefully I get a response from there. And if you see here, when I chose to, what I did was ask a question, and I can decide what kind of a response I want. I want a text response or a number response, and I chose text. This is what I get. So I get a prompt. So this is what the bot is prompting. And here's where I'm getting my user input. Now, my user input, I can even store it in any particular variable. So I actually have, this is my dialogue that is going on. So maybe I will store it in my dialogue as part of, let's say, username. I'm expecting the user to provide me a name when I ask it, what is your name? And the response, I'm going to store it in my user input, which is dialog.username. And then, it's not just enough that I know what the name is. I would like to greet the user using that response. So I'm going to just send it a response saying, nice to meet you. And it's stored in my dialog variable. So let's go find that. So that's under dialog.username there. So I don't even have to remember the syntax. I just need to just click and pick and choose and display that. Okay, cool. So far, so good. Let's restart our bot and let's see where we are at right now. What we did is we changed the welcome message. We also asked the user for a specific question, and we are going to greet the user if the user provides us an answer. So let's restart the conversation. Let's see. So it says, welcome to your joke bot. Hi, I'm Joka. What is your name? And if I say Liji and I hit enter, it says, nice to meet you, Liji. Now that took like 2 minutes. So there you have it. So it says, nice to meet you, Liji. So you get the idea. You can actually build out your entire conversational experience using this flowchart with literally no lines of code there. And this really helps with even with non-technical members of your team. Even programmers like designers or conversational UX designers or business analysts who've got the domain knowledge, who knows how the conversation transcript should look like, can use this interface to sort of lay out your conversational flow. Now let's try something that's a little more let's say challenging. So here we know we are here to say a joke, and one way that you can do that is you can store all your jokes inside a repository, inside a database, and you can fetch from there. Or maybe you can even call an API. Now, can you call an API without writing code? Let's see. So if you remember, we did speak about the concept of triggers. So one trigger as we got was the greeting trigger, which proactively greeted the user, right when the conversation started. We can create our own trigger. So if you go here in the top right corner to Azure Community Bot, I'm going to add a new trigger. Now, before I add a new trigger, I would say that you need to come here and change the recognizer type to regular expression recognizer. It's a little more detailed topic, but to keep it simple, this is what helps you provide your user utterances or your intents. And I can explain that in a minute. So let's add a new trigger, and let's say the name of my trigger is joke intent. Okay, so I want the bot to tell me a joke whenever I tell me a joke. So the trigger for the bot would be when the user says, tell me a joke, the bot understands, okay, so the user wants to listen to a joke. So that rejects patterns. You can input any number of utterances here or any number of phrases. These different people might use different trigger phrases. I might say, tell me a joke. You might say, I want to hear a joke, maybe just joke. There are different ways in which you can trigger that. All those can be put in. You just need to put in using a pipeline symbol. Say, let's try this. I can trigger this using just tell me a joke or even just joke. And the name of my trigger is a joke intent. I'm going to create that. So I have a trigger now. I have an intent which is going to recognize when the user tells the bot, tell me a joke or joke, this is going to get fired. This is the event handler that is going to get fired right now. So here I want to call an external API. Now, how I do that is I can hit add. If I go to access external resources, I will note that there is an option to send an HTTP request. Now, there are different ways you can do it. You can either do it directly into this, or you can even create other dialogues, as I said. Just imagine that as reusable components, or to keep your code a little more clean. So I can create another dialogue here. Let's say add a dialogue, and I'm going to create another dialogue called joke dialogue. I can even provide a description, though not mandatory. And here in my begin dialogue, I will do the same thing, right? So I'm just separating those concerns here. So access external resources, and I would send an HTTP request. So this is where you need to provide your HTTP method. It'd be a get method. I have tried out an API in Postman, and let's try to put this. So here's where you have it's from official joke API. You can try any public API of this sort. So what does a clock do when it's hungry? It goes back 4 seconds. Some jokes are even very difficult to get, but you get the idea. So let's use this URL here. Let's paste that there. And so that's my URL of my joke. And I want the results to be, sort of stored somewhere. So again, I would like to store it in my dialogue. Let's say response object, and the response type would be JSON. That's it. I've called my API. Now, once the API is called, I want to, show the results or show the response of the API. And for that, I would send a response. Now, in my response column, if I have to just go back to the Postman there, we would see that the values are available under setup and under punchline inside the content body. These are the parameters I'm looking for, setup and punchline. Go back here and let's see, how easy this is to do. So dialog dot, if you remember, response was where we had stored the response object. I would go to content dot setup. So that is actually the question part of my joke, and the answer part would actually be under punchline. So that was the parameter that we saw there. So my dialogue is ready. Now I go back to my trigger, my joke intent trigger, where I know that, okay, so this is where the bot is going to come when the user says, tell me a joke. And now what is the bot supposed to be doing? It is supposed to be calling that dialogue, the dialogue we just created, the name of which is joke dialogue. That's it. So let's try this bot, and let's see if it can tell us a joke. So every time you do that, you have to just restart your bot, and then you can test it out within the interface, which is the open web chat. Just make sure you clear that, and it says, what is your name? And it said, Liddy. Nice to meet you, Liddy. I'm going to just say, tell me a joke. And what the beaver say to the tree? It's been nice going with you. Okay, and let's try another one. What's brown and sounds like leather? Oh, that's not a good one. Let's try another one. And there you go. So you have, you get the idea. So you have a lot of options to, get these kinds of things done within the bot framework composer itself, within, without having to write a single line of code. So this is probably the easiest way to get started with building bots. Even if you come from a non-technical background, this is quite an easy and a very simple way for you to get started with building bots. And the capabilities of this is endless. In fact, we're just scratching the surface in terms of the capabilities here. We can, as I said, you can connect it to far more powerful services like Q&A, like Louis, and other cognitive services. You can even publish it directly to Azure. You can even download the code here. And just for your information, if you're working around this and you're looking for a save button, this is completely auto save. If you've not seen me save, it's because it's auto save and just gets automatically saved every time. So you don't have to save your source code anywhere. And so that is a quick run through of the bot framework composer. We saw it, how to create triggers, how to add trigger phrases, how to create dialogues, how to invoke APIs as well without writing a single piece of code. So how does a bot work, right? So from the, from an external point of view, anytime you've interacted with the bot, it might look very simple. You're just asking the user a question and you're getting a response. But under the hoods now, what exactly is happening? So you as a bot developer might be interested in knowing this. When you ask, when a user's ask comes to a bot, there is a service called language understanding service. So this is what happens in powerful bots there. And how does the bot know how to answer? There are there's another cognitive service called Q&A maker. Now the point we're coming to drive is that there are so many cognitive services of this sort. Lots of them that are available from Microsoft, from Azure AI. Those kinds of intelligence services or cognitive services can be directly connected to from your bot framework composer. We have not seen that today, but please note that that is a capability. You can even connect your bot to external systems like your third-party systems or your other systems that you want to integrate to. So that's also a possibility. Just before we wrap up, a quick run through, you might hear the concept of a skill, though it's a very powerful concept. We have not covered it, but at least on a theoretical basis, I'd like to tell you what a skill is. So a skill is, consider it as another bot, just another bot that your root bot would delegate the major task to. So if I have to explain that, imagine your first round of questions is coming to a root bot. Now, from that root bot, the bot can delegate that question. As we've seen dialogues, it can delegate it to another bot altogether. It can go to a weather bot. It can go to a travel bot. It can go to a reservation bot. And the reason why it is architected in this way is because not just your root bot, but even other bots can now employ those skills. So if you are familiar with Alexa skills or those kind of Google Assistant skills, this is the concept behind that. So you don't have to even build an all-powerful bot. You can even build bot skills using Bot Framework Composer. Those mini bots can actually be used by other people who are building bots as well. So it's actually a very powerful architecture to build production ready bots. So you have skill bots, and then you have consumers of those bots called skill consumer bots. Now, all that technical said and done, most people ask me, what is our number one priority when designing a bot? Now, I would say a great conversational user experience, because devoid of whatever technology that we have, if the user experience is not up to the mark, it'd be very difficult to hold on to your audience. Now, does the bot easily solve the user's problem with minimal back and forth turns? It has to be very fast, very easy for the user to get answers to their questions. It should work across multiple platforms and devices. The bot should be able to discover the information. It should be like a guide, a friend to your user who's coming to you to seek answers. So experiencing that and designing that interface is very key to getting your application or your bot successful. And Bot Framework Composer just makes it one step easier for you, because now you can see and you can design it, and your productivity is far more, because you get from start to finish in in a few minutes, right? So that's probably a wrap for the session. And here's a summary of whatever we covered today. We looked at the history of conversational AI. There was Microsoft Conversational AI. And we also looked at Bot Framework Composer, a demo. And before I open it up for Q&A session, I'd like to thank you for your attention and for your patience. You can find me on the following channels. And also would like to say that I have an upcoming talk it's actually in a couple of months from now, wherein I would also be working on next steps to this. We'd be working on talking to far more powerful bots that can be built in your workplace and in that kind of a scenario. So if you're interested, please join. With that, I will turn it to you, Ashirwad, and open it up for questions. Thank you.
Thank you for a wonderful session, Lichi. It was really quite informative. Like I didn't know that it was so easy to interact with APIs within your bots. So that was the complex part that I always thought it's really hard to do.
Yeah.
So we have a couple of questions with us. So let's go with the first question. It's by Ram Prakash. So does this framework or service cost anything?
Okay. So probably I don't know why I didn't tell you that good news first. This does not cost anything. This is the Bot Framework Composer is an open source IDE that is available on GitHub today. You can even download the entire SDK behind it. So it is free of cost for you to use. If you need to publish your bot to Azure, that is the only time you need to have an Azure subscription in hand. Otherwise, it's absolutely free for you to get started right now.
Okay, so okay, so there is a free trial, right, Liji?
For the Bot Framework Composer, no. Bot Framework Composer is actually it's a tool that you can download. Oh, you mean Azure? Yes. Azure,
Yes.
you have a free tier. Yes, absolutely, you're right. Azure, you have a free tier where you just need to sign up. I think the first 30 to 90 days would be, you'll get a lot of credits that you can use to building Azure bot service. So that is only when you need to go to the production mode, so to speak. To try out and build your little bots, you don't need even Azure, right? So you can just download Bot Framework Composer and start today. That's free.
That's great. I hope it answers Ram. So there are two more questions from Ram. So it's
Yes.
like, does the trigger accept the exact match to fire the response, or similar match would work?
So the trigger, the way we did it today, might expect you to provide it more or less the same way, exact way that we provided it there. That said, if you are interested in creating a bot where it will be able to understand the language domain, just as the way we speak today, I would recommend switching from hard coding the trigger phrases there to connecting the bot with the language understanding service, or LUIS, LIUS as we said. LUIS is an advanced cognitive service available from Azure. Using LUIS, you can train additional responses, and that is an NLU service. It's a natural language understanding service. It's a highly sophisticated machine learning algorithm that is running behind that. You don't have to worry with any of that. It's an entire black box. You just need to call the LUIS service, the API. You can connect it with the bot framework composer. We did not do that today, but that would be the way to go if you have to fire, near similar and other kinds of matches as well.
Okay, so this is an interesting area. Maybe we can have a talk on that area sometime around.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing it to our notice, Ram, and thank you for the answer, Lily. Let's move on to the next question. So the third question is it possible to configure this bot which can respond to likely matches instead of exact matching questions? I think these are both similar questions, the
Yes,
previous one.
yes, that's kind of like the same thing I answered, I guess. And that would be the ideal scenario in a production environment, right? Because you always get curveballs thrown at your bot, and even between people there is always unique differences. But even just myself, depending on what time of the day I ask and what mood I am in, I would probably ask the same thing in different ways, in 10 different ways at 10 different times. So that is the beauty of the human language, but that is probably the most challenging part when it comes to AI systems as well, to just understand the intent of what the user is saying. So the ability to match the intent to a specific utterance is the North Star for cognitive services like language understanding service, LUIS, or language understanding service, as I said. For example, okay, to put it very, very simple, you could go to a bot and say, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, hola, hello, hi, hey. There are so many ways in which you can greet a particular bot. But irrespective of however you greet the bot may need to understand that the intent of the user is a greeting. So, however different ways it has been said, at the end of the day, it was just a greeting. And so, if that understanding is there with the bot can respond with an appropriate response. It can say, irrespective of whatever you say, it can say, oh, hi, hello, how are you? And those kinds of things. So the response is one part. The understanding is the first part. So for the understanding of that natural language is where we focus on services like LUIS, and those services typically in a cloud first approach, we used to call out those APIs, we used to connect with the LUIS endpoint, call those services, etc. In bot framework composer, you can easily configure the LUIS service. Just need to provide the API key, the endpoint subscription, and that's it. You're done and dusted in 1 minute, and LUIS is ready.
That's really interesting, Lychee, because it takes away a lot of complexity and the development time and effort that's actually there.
Yeah.
While integrating all the solutions. There was this particular query that I had in my mind. Let's see, our bot was unable to answer the query in a proper way. The user tried 2 or 3 times, but after that, you wanted to hand over to a particular user. Like we have our
Yes.
customer care support persons who can
Yes.
better understand the thing. How do we, have this handover kind of a mechanism in bot framework composer?
You can easily do that in bot framework composer. There is a human handoff feature or a mechanism that you can provide. Just as you said, that logic is totally up to you. Maybe you want to, after 3 consecutive sorry responses, like I'm not able to answer the user 3 or 4 consecutive times, or maybe your accuracy rate is very high. Maybe you don't even have tolerance for one sorry response. So you can immediately say that, oh, I don't know the answer to that question, let me connect you with a live agent. And that live agent connection is also very easy to hook up within bot framework composer. It's just a matter of just configuring. If you're familiar with Power Virtual Agents, which is another flavor of creating chatbots from Microsoft, inside there as well, this is quite easy to actually connect it with that. If you remember, there was a session called package manager. Inside packager manager, you can actually import a lot of these packages for not just human handoff, but for even other areas where you can bring in advanced capabilities than what we just saw today in those last 30 minutes. So bot framework composer, like I said we were just scratching the surface in terms of what was possible, but in terms of just quickly configuring, even publishing to Azure is so cool. You can just set up a publish profile. You can just tell what is the name of your endpoint, etc., etc. Few buttons, just click here and there, and it's published and done to Azure. So literally no line of code. The only code that you saw me writing was the syntax that you saw on the right side. I don't know if you want to call it code per se, but that's the only thing that we write. And again, ours was a very simple, pretty straightforward flow. You can branch this out. You have multiple flows within flows. You can loop this in ways that you want, and you can, just left to your imagination and creativity of how powerful a bot you can actually create using this.
It's pretty exciting. It's more like we have a flow chart and we are building our bot to act according to that. So
Exactly, exactly.
it's definitely an interesting area. Thank you, Liji, for taking some time out from your busy schedule and hosting a talk for us on this particular area. It was really exciting, and I think the scope of this subject area is a lot. So probably all
Absolutely.
of us can explore it a bit. And folks, there are a couple of more sessions that are lined up today. So there are two parallel sessions that were going on. So one was by Anuraj, and this is by Liji. So there are a couple more sessions lined up today. Like you can see, there's a session on low code, no code auto ML, and there's one on exploring Azure Cognitive Services, one on logic apps, and then there's building a recommendation engine for finding answers for certain questions. So there's a lot of a lot of sessions there today on AI. So I hope you people do join in for the rest of the sessions that are scheduled later for the day. And I would like to thank one of the attendees, Sangram Rath, who was answering a couple of queries in the background in the comment section. Thank you, Sangram, for your cooperation. And thank you, Lichi, for tuning in. And thank you all. Have a great day and a great weekend. Um,
Thank
that's all from
thank
our
you.
end. Thank you.
Thank you.